Dum da dum da dum da dum da da dum da dum da dum da dum da da.
Can't everybody stop for 10 minutes? I mean, everybody seems that's the only. Everybody, can we stick? I mean, it's not that much to ask. Is that when everybody has to move when I'm trying to concentrate? I mean, it's so rude. I can't believe it. Why does everyone all of a sudden have to move? Got 2 hours to move around. Wait 10 minutes. I'm sorry to explode, my guy, but it's like no one's ever worked before. I actually can't believe what I just saw.
Radio guys who don't have time for the facts.
I heard a dial tone. And there were 7 people. I mean, we need to use the studio for 15 minutes.
Guys are off to a great start, don't you think?
Hey, buddy, I'm not paying you to hear your thoughts on life.
Well, I have a microphone, and you don't.
So you will listen to every word I have to say!
I know that you do some terrible, terrible things, and I can prove that you do these terrible things, and sure enough, contained in the package was stuff to prove that I do terrible things.
Excuse me, is that your nose or did a bus park on your face?
I just love the way you talk.
Hail to the king, baby. Don't call me stupid.
Oh, right. To call you stupid would be an insult to stupid people.
Victory is mine. Got news for you, dude.
I'll use small words that you'll be sure to understand, you warthog-faced buffoon.
The guilty pleasure offered by the existence of the sideshow Bob is simple and understandable. 99 times out of 100. Nearly every time we partake of the movable falafel feast, he serves us nothing but comedy. Farce, slapstick, unconscious self-mutilation, the Sisyphus of morons, if you will. But this is the 100th time out of 100. It is not funny at all. That's on the record and documented. Americans who deserves better than the sideshow Bob of commentators. We all do.
Well, I think you folks have a real fine show, and it's going to be successful just as soon as people find out what time it's on.
Oh, they're terrible. They're so terrible.
You want them to run through it again?
No, let's just move on. We have a lot to do.
All right, here we go. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's get it on. Come on.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Terrible.
What are you doing to me? You'll miss the opening. This is the most important number in the show.
This show's broken, has not even begun yet.
Good.
This show's unairable.
It's the Joel Oriend Show.
I can hardly wait.
Today's worst person in the world.
Joel, I love you, and please behave yourself. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my son, Joel Oriend.
Well, it is May, and boy, there's singing in the streets, isn't there? The governor has made his announcement. You can, if you put your ear to the window, you can hear the chant. No more pencils, no more books, no more teachers' dirty looks. Kick the tables, kick the chairs, kick the teachers down the stairs. Well, that's what I don't think that's politically correct anymore. That's what we sang, when school was out. Now school's not technically out, I suppose. They've got to finish the school year, but essentially, I mean, it's pretty much done. Obviously that if you sang that song nowadays, you'd get in serious trouble. So I think that the newer version, of that song, I think the kids, sing today is, no more pencils, no more books, no more teachers' dirty looks. When the teacher rings the bell, drop your books and run like, well, H-E double hockey sticks. You know what I'm saying there. That's although I suppose a kid probably could get in trouble for saying that depending on what, grade he's in. Like I said, my son, he's a junior, so, you know, it's hard. I think it's almost harder for the older kids now at this point as it gets nicer out and they can drive. You've got to have a lot of self-restraint and, you know, extremely dedicated to your schoolwork. And there certainly are some kids that are, you know, very studious and, you know, want to learn and have a thirst for knowledge. My son, not so much. He can't wait to get done with school. He wants to get done and either go into the military or the workforce. You know, he's going to BOCES and he's learning a lot of great, you know, life skills. I mean, he's gonna, you know, be able to do a lot of different things Whether it's construction or welding. I mean, he's going to make more money in a year shortly after he graduates with some of these trades that he's learning than I do. That's for sure. And so he's not huge into school. Now maybe that will change. I wasn't that into school until, probably 10th grade when I realized, geez, my girlfriend's really smart. She's going to go to a smart school. And if I don't kick it up a notch, I'm not going to be able to go with her. And that, and then it was still too late by the time I really kicked it into gear and had to work hard. And I mean, I had to work real hard. Like, I had to go for extra credit, and I always had to, do any extra credit work and do makeup tests. And even then, I was a B plus student, maybe at the best. And so, the teachers were impressed how hard I worked, but then I think they couldn't believe how bad I still did. Some said I was the best worst student they ever had, or I was the worst best student they ever had. I forget which one. So I applied for several colleges. I think I applied to Boston, Penn State. I'm glad I didn't go there after the Sandusky thing, and Oswego in Lemoyne. And I didn't get into any of those. Plus, my parents, even if I got in, my parents were so skeptical that I was not going to do very well because, again, I hadn't done great in high school. So they shipped me off to a community college where you really, you get in, quite frankly, as long as you had a valid ID, at Mohawk Valley Community College. And I did well. I did much better there than I did in high school. And so then I applied to all those schools again, and I got into all of them, and I got a call from all of them. And the one I was really mad about was Lemoyne, because I was close to getting in the first time, and I had a phone interview. I was so close, and I thought I was persuasive, but apparently not persuasive enough because I didn't get in. So they call me and they're like, hey, congratulations. You did, exactly what we told you needed to do. And congratulations, you're accepted. And I was like, sorry, I'm not coming. You didn't want me the first time, so my money wasn't good enough then. It's not good enough now. And so then I went to Syracuse University. But so, it's going to be interesting to see how the end of the school. I mean, it's going to be difficult for anybody to really fail, right? I mean, because everybody has, different circumstances at home. Some have better internet, some don't. And so I think it would be difficult. I think it's got to be difficult on teachers to be able to, grade, because it's hard to, keep things at a even level, right? I mean, there's so many variables now with kids, doing schoolwork from home that, it would be hard not to pass a kid. I mean, quite frankly, kids hardly fail anyways anymore. So with them not being in school, I think it's medical students got to graduate a couple months early because they needed the med students in the field. So it's got to be really hard for, the teachers to, keep these students, engaged. Yeah, it's tough for adults to work from home, because sometimes, during the day things happen and, you're not working 8 straight hours like you might, when you go to work, but then you have a tendency to kind of work here, work there, take a break, come back to it. And what happens is, it's not that defined 8 hours. Go to work at 8, come home at 4. It's kind of, you're doing a little bit and then coming back. And so then it's, right up, into the night. And the downside of working from home is you never get to leave work, essentially. So Monday melds in the Wednesday, melds in the Saturday because you're not leaving. So it's really, it's got to be hard for the teachers to keep these kids engaged, and, some are more engaged than others, and it's hard to keep track of what they're doing and when and how they're doing it. It's extremely difficult for these educators to try to get through this, and so they still got a while to go, too. So they've got to really hammer this out here for the next, whatever it is, month and a half to get to the end of the school year and try to keep these kids. And it's hard enough to keep the kids engaged in June when it's, especially the younger ones in elementary school, the last couple weeks of school when the weather's nice and everything. So a very tall task for the educators. I certainly, my heart goes out to them as they've got a lot on their plate to try to do that. That's for sure. So school's still in, school's not out for summer yet, but they're on the home stretch now. I mean, you do feel sorry for the seniors. Obviously, it's, your senior year, especially when you get on to February and March and April, outside of the, the Regents exams. If, you're taking Regences, again, it's a little different nowadays, but, we were taking Regences, and, my sister was a year ahead of me, and she'd never failed any Regences. So the pressure was on me not to fail any Regences. And so you had those. But outside of that, it was just having fun and kind of winding down. And, those seniors just aren't going to have that, no senior trips. So there's a lot of things they're going to miss out on. And I certainly feel bad. My heart goes out to them about that. But when you look at it in the big scheme of things, right? And I know that it stinks. There's no doubt about it. But, think about, our parents. If you're my age, I'm, getting close to 45, or maybe, slightly a little older than me. Our parents were, especially, the young men were going to Vietnam. Whether, if they were 18 and still in school or right out of school, they were going to fight in Vietnam. So that wasn't a great time for them. And I read the Anne Frank story in school. I saw on 60 Minutes, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, they did a story on Holocaust survivors. And what they were doing was they were contacting and gathering Holocaust survivors and getting their stories and putting them on video and recording them because they wanted to have their stories put on tape so that, they could be documented. And the technology has come so far that they've been able to make holograms of these individuals. Now, these individuals had to agree to it, and they were interested in doing it, and they wanted their stories to be told. And so they told their stories, and these researchers asked multiple questions to these survivors, and they would answer the questions and everything. And they kind of did research on, what question would you ask and stuff like that. And so they asked these questions. And now, and they showed it, that one of the Holocaust survivors had passed away, and Leslie Stahl on 60 Minutes was interviewing this hologram of an individual. She would ask questions, and he would answer it. And it was incredible. And one of the stories that just jumps out at you, that just, makes you realize we're pretty lucky, right? I mean, yeah, we're stuck inside, but so the gentleman who had passed, tells the story that he runs away from home. His parents were taken away. He runs down the street to a couple that his parents knew that owned a shop, and they didn't want to at first, but they hid him in their attic, and he stayed there for, and I forget exactly how old he was. I think he was a teenager, I think. And he stayed in their attic for 2 years. And he said he got one visit per day from them when they brought him food. And, changed his bucket. You think about that. And he said that he would catch flies in the attic. And, first I thought he was going to say, eat them because, got to be extremely hungry. But he said he would take their wings off so that they could not fly away and they could keep him company. I mean, if that's not, heartbreaking and heart-wrenching and putting things into perspective. I mean, yeah, we're self-sheltered and housebound, but we've got internet, we've got cable, we've got devices, we've got phones. Just think about that. 2 years in an attic, getting one visit a day. That's the only human contact that you have. That's incredible. That's hardship. I mean, I know it's a bummer we can't, go out and eat and stuff, but in comparison, it's not that bad. We have family, with us. Some of us have, live alone, but some of us, I have my, my wife and, my son comes over. And so there's still some interaction, but that just jumped out at me, that story, and really puts into perspective what's tough and what it's like to go through some rough times. So I thought that was very interesting, some amazing technology. And then what they did was they were using algorithms, right? So if people ask these holograms certain questions, the algorithms will pick up on certain words, and that will dictate what answer the hologram gives. It's pretty amazing. Now, there's some people that don't like that. They feel it's exploiting the survivors, and it's playing a little bit of God by having them still alive, because what the next thing is. I mean, rich people are gonna want to do this for themselves, and then there's gonna be holograms of rich people and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here. But I thought it was very, very interesting, and certainly can be extremely educational for the next generation. As those people pass away, those stories won't pass away with them and their struggle and all of that. So that was very interesting and really kind of put things into focus for me, that's for sure. Now, Tanner, how are things going for you at CCC, Corning Community College? You still rolling along? When do you guys wrap up? When is it all done for you?
I'm not sure the exact date when the semester is supposed to get over, but it's sometime mid-May, so I'd think the 15th, maybe 22nd, sometime around that time is when things will come to a close. But I'm good. Quarantine is technically over, but I still haven't left the house since it ended, so just as a precautionary measure. So just been trying to grind and do schoolwork and weather the storm. It feels like this thing's been going on forever and there's no end in sight, but I'm hanging in there.
Have they been easier on you or tougher on you? Has there been more schoolwork or less schoolwork during this time at CCC?
No, I don't think it's been particularly difficult. They haven't, it hasn't been like they're like, oh, these kids got plenty of free time on their hands. Now let's bombard them with homework. No, they've been pretty good about it. Seems like the normal workload that you would expect if, we were still up there on campus, just a different format now. So at least I have that to be thankful for, is my teachers aren't evil people and they haven't just buried me in homework.
What are you doing to bide the time and pass the time? You just playing a lot of video games?
Oh yeah, for sure. I've been grinding on 2K and Madden, but I can't do that for the entire day. So, I've been trying to get out and take walks around the neighborhood. I'm thinking about taking my dogs here for a walk in the next couple days. And I've just been doing schoolwork, listening to music, watching YouTube videos, just your average teenager stuff. But there's not much really to do in this time.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. I don't have to make my hour-and-a-half commute to Bath every day, ride to Hornell with my wife, then wait 15, 20 minutes to get a bus to go over to Bath, and then, make my 2-mile walk to work. So that is nice. The only traffic I have to deal with is we had a 2-cat pileup in the kitchen today. Even even the cats, I think, are sick of us being home. They're so used to, I think at first they loved it, and now it's like, man, when are you guys gonna leave? You yell at us when we're rip-roaring around and we can't get up on things we're not supposed to. I think the cats are ready for us to go back to work, that's for sure. Tanner, before we take a break here, why don't you go ahead and give your Tanner trivia question here?
All right. So originally I wanted to ask this question when Brad Ordway was on the show because it kind of ties sports and music together, but that didn't end up happening. But I'm still going to ask it regardless because better late than never, right? So here we go. Which Motown singer tried out for the Detroit Lions in 1970? And the choices are Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, Lionel Richie, or Smokey Robinson.
All right, good question. Let's ponder that, and we'll take a break here. Also, we had some technical issues a couple weeks ago when we had Wayne Carroll on, the newest member of the Section 5 Football Hall of Fame. He is a member of the class of 2020. We have our interview with Wayne Carroll up on the YouTube page. So if you missed that interview live, you can go and catch that interview. I think it's a very good interview. It's in depth. We touch on a lot of things in his 32-year coaching career at Romulus and at Bath Haverling. We touch upon how it ended at Bath Haverling with him. I know a lot of people were interested in that because it was shrouded in mystery and a little bit of controversy. We talked about that and so much more with Wayne Carroll. That is up on the YouTube page. All right. You can go to 921theteam.com and that'll get you to the YouTube page. We've got coming up Eric Eager from Pro Football Focus. We also have Tyler Kirk coming on from Fanside and NFL Mocks. We'll get his grades on the Buffalo Bills, and we'll have Ryan Leaf on. You probably know Ryan Leaf's story pretty well by now. He was a standout quarterback at Washington State, got the Cougs to the Rose Bowl for the first time in 60 years, and that game actually ended in controversy. You may have forgotten about that. We'll talk about that. Ryan then went second overall in the 98 draft, only behind Peyton Manning, and then he went to the Chargers, and of course, things imploded from there. We all remember him going off on that newspaper writer, and it just didn't work there, and he bounced around a little bit after that in the NFL. Then he tried to get into some coaching, but he got addicted to painkillers because of an injury. He then got into some trouble, got into jail, got out of jail. He has since cleaned himself up. He's doing great work. He's helping people in recovery, and he is now working for the Pac-12 Network and for ESPN. So you want to talk about someone who's had the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. He's lived the American dream twice, quite frankly, in his life. Getting to play in the NFL and being a professional athlete, and now he's really at the top of his game in the broadcasting industry. So it's been a wild ride for Ryan Leaf. We'll talk to him about his story and a lot of stuff. I want to get his thoughts on a few things with college football and whatnot. So we've got a lot to get to. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. It's 92.1 The Team. We'll be back right after this.
And now a word from the PKA Drake Agency. Are you having financial hardship as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and are unable to pay premiums that are due? Your insurance company can assist you by suspending cancellation for non-payment and allowing you to pay the premium over a 12-month period. If your premiums are financed, you will be given 60 days to make your payment before a cancellation of the policy is requested by the finance company. This also applies if you are a small business, that is, any business that is resident in this state, is independently owned and operated, and employs 100 or fewer individuals. In order to take advantage of these extensions, the insurer or finance company will need from you a written statement that you are having financial hardship as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. A recent executive order issued by Governor Andrew Cuomo set forth the details that insurers must abide by in implementing the premium relief that has been mandated for policyholders who are financially impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. If you have any questions about this premium payment assistance or need help with the process, please do not hesitate to email Lori Drake at this email address, ldrake@pkadrakeagency.com. With some recent revisions, our certificate sale is still going on. Save up to 50% off your favorite restaurant or local business. Pay online and we'll ship the certificates to you at no extra charge. Go to www.921theteam.com and click on Certificate Sale. Buy the certificate you want and request that they be shipped. Let us help you save money. And thanks for listening to 92.1 The Team.
Are you tired of high cable TV rates? Sign up for Dish today and get a $500 bonus offer while supplies last. Plus, lock in your price for 2 years guaranteed. Call All American Dish, your Dish authorized retailer now.
800-706-7063. 800-706-7063. That's 800-706-7063. Offers require credit qualification, 24-month commitment, early termination fee, and e-auto pay. Restrictions apply. Call for details.
You're a sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot.
Welcome back to the Joel Oriend Show.
So I have a few faults. Who doesn't? Is that any reason to kill me?
On 92.1 The Team.
Essentially, that had to be Adam Schefter on Twitter last week. Of course, the NFL draft took place last weekend. And Adam Schefter, who, his beat is the NFL. He's an NFL insider. That's what he covers. That's his living with ESPN. He was excited last week, right? He went on Twitter, hey, finally something to watch, some live sporting event stuff, and can't wait for it. And he got some heat and some slack. He had to go back on Twitter and apologize. Because unlike Adam, I knew, who didn't know this? The WNBA draft was taking place, or had taken place by then, and so Adam had to go on Twitter and apologize that he did not recognize that or mention that. And so, listen, wouldn't it be a little strange and odd, though, if Adam Schefter, who, doesn't cover the WNBA and never talks about it, and he only talks about the NFL on ESPN TV and ESPN Radio, was going on Twitter talking about how excited he was to watch the WNBA draft? I mean, wouldn't it be a little creepy and odd if a 40, 50-year-old guy like Adam Schefter was all gunged up about the WNBA draft? Now, unlike Adam, I watched it and DVR'd it. And I've watched it multiple times, as a matter of fact, the WNBA draft. Matter of fact, sometimes I watch it in slow motion just so that, it will last longer when I watch. I mean, listen, if you're into, the WNBA and women's basketball, that's totally fine. I totally get it. I could even understand younger guys maybe watching it. It just seems a little creepy to me if 40 or 50 or 60-year-old guys in the sports media that don't cover the WNBA all of a sudden are excited to watch the WNBA and watch some college girl get drafted by the LA Sparks. It would seem a little weird. What's way less weird is 40, 50, 60-year-old guys talking about young college guys getting drafted into the NFL. And we want to talk about the draft. We weren't able to delve into it as much last week. The draft was still in progress. We want to break down the Bills draft, the AFC East, and the AFC in the draft overall with someone who's extremely knowledgeable on it. We want to get his grades. Great follow on Twitter at PFF_Eric. He is also one of the co-hosts of the PFF Forecast from Pro Football Focus. It's Eric Eager. Eric, Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So, let's talk Bills first. I've seen a lot of people, give them A's across the board for the entire draft. Some B as far as the entire draft. Some have put them in the top 5 of the best drafts, maybe the top 10. Your overall thoughts on the Bills draft, and then we can talk specifically any picks that you thought were questionable or were great moves on their part.
Well, I think they gave up a decent amount for Stephon Diggs, so that always has to be factored in. I think he'll be a difference maker for them. So that was, their first pick, which I think has to be factored in. Epineza was a player who, when you looked going into the season, he was like a top 15 pick. You get him at 54. Part of that was that he didn't perform as well at Iowa in his final season, but part of that is just the way the market works. So you get some value there. I don't know, Zack Moss is a terrific running back. I don't know at 86 overall if he's, the value, obviously, when you can get a guy like Devin Singletary, obviously later, as they've shown. But, he should be a good enough player to add to their offense. My only reservation, and Gabriel Davis, if used properly in that offense, I think, can offer value. He really only ran deep, go routes and posts. For UCF, but he was very efficient in doing so. So that, I don't mind that pick as well in round 4. Jake Fromm is a totally different quarterback than Josh Allen, but sometimes that's what you need out of your backup. My only concerns is that they didn't address the offensive line. I know Cody Ford struggled a season ago in a pretty deep tackle class. Maybe they could have gone there, but, they didn't get worse this past weekend, which is, more than you can say about some teams.
Absolutely. Let me ask you about the Fromm move. I think at first it kind of surprised people. Now, at the 5th round, it's not like they were reaching by any means. And when we had you on last time and we talked about, should the Bills go out and get, Cam Newton, or would that hurt Josh Allen having him, behind him? And you brought up a great point. Listen, if competition in practice is going to affect Josh Allen, then he probably doesn't have the mental makeup to be the guy to take you to the next level and to a championship. Maybe, like you said, maybe he's a good backup from, but maybe they can pull a Patriots here with a Hoyer, Mallett, Garoppolo. Maybe the kid shows a little something in the preseason, Eric, maybe in a spot start if Josh gets hurt and he does well. Maybe you've got some great equity in a backup quarterback that you can then parlay into something as far as a trade maybe down the road as well.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, with a team as good as the Bills, from top to front, back to front, you have, if Allen struggles, which there's a decent chance he will, just having a quarterback come in and be able to steady the ship at least is worth a lot. And in a division that won't be particularly good, Miami I think is ascending, but they have a long way to go. The Jets are the Jets, and New England I don't think are going to be particularly good unless they make a move at QB. The Bills should be the favorite to win that division, and there might be a circumstance where they're still winning games even though Allen isn't playing well, and I think having a guy like Fromm in there gives you a little bit of a security blanket, and so, I don't mind the pick. In fact, I think there was a decent, call you could have made to have him go ahead of guys like Jacob Eason, even Jordan Love. I don't think, as poorly as Fromm sometimes played last season, he played better than Jordan Love in a big conference. So it was a good pick by them. And as you said, in the 5th round, you're not really throwing, the opportunity cost is not particularly high. So it's worth doing.
I want to get your take on the New York Giants. A lot of Giants fans in the area. Of course, Hornell native Mike Waffle won a Super Bowl with the Giants. In the NFC East, just in general, a lot of NFC East fans in this area. Then the other New York team, the New York Jets.
I think the Giants had an A draft. My only concern with them is when you look at, their receiver position, they might have been able to use one, but they got lucky last season that Slayton worked out for them. Tate comes back, and he's a good football player still at his age. And Shepard and Engram are good pass catchers as well. What the Giants did in drafting 2 tackles, Thomas was our highest graded tackle, and later on in the draft, they fortified the situation even further. You find out really quickly whether or not Daniel Jones is any good. And that's worth a lot because a year that you spend, it's sort of interesting. It's like with Buffalo, like we're not sure if Josh Allen's any good. I think he maybe earned an opportunity for a third season, but if he completely craters this year, that's sort of a wasted year, right? Whereas with Jones, if he struggles this year, it's probably going to be because of him, and the Giants can sort of make contingency plans at the position. And so they did a great job of putting him in a position to succeed. I thought that they had a great draft. The only downside is that the two of the other teams in the NFC East had even better drafts. But the Giants did pretty well. The Jets, the Becton pick was a little bit weird for me because I don't think they're doing what the Giants are doing with Jones, with Darnold, in giving him a lot of weapons with Robbie Anderson leaving, and so on and so forth. So that one was a little bit of a head scratcher. I do really like Ashton Davis, the safety they took, right at pick 68 or 69. That, to me, I think their defense was a lot better than people gave them credit for last year. I think that makes them even stronger.
So we've just spoken about the Bills here, but how do you think that their AFC East counterparts did in the draft this year?
Well, I think the Patriots had the best draft because they turned their first-round pick into a number of picks, or, a lot of value from the Chargers. And then they got players that I think work for them, obviously, in Kyle Duggar and then Josh Uche. They got some tight ends. I think Anthony Jennings is a good edge player as well. So I think they did the best in turning, not much, because they traded a second-round pick last season for Mohamed Sanu. They went around and they got some value, So I think they might. It's tough, but I think they edge out the Dolphins for me just because the Dolphins, when they took Austin Jackson at pick 18, really reached for an offensive lineman. Tua was a great pick. Igbenogany is a good pick. Trading a fifth-round pick for Matt Breida, I think, is a solid play. But the Austin Jackson pick really has my reservations, given that they had so many other, opportunities to take a tackle that were a lot better than what Austin Jackson was at USC. Then I would go with Buffalo, again, just because Buffalo didn't address the offensive line. And the Diggs trade is a great one, but they still, he's not a rookie, so you have to factor in cost. And I think the Jets last because the Jets came out of the draft still with glaring needs and with a real possibility that next season they go 7-9 again, and we still don't know, if Sam Darnold is any good.
Sure, absolutely. And, like you said, the Tua pick probably good. I would guess Fitzpatrick is going to start. They'll bring Tua along. I'm sure if the season probably goes south, they may bring him in and get him some time. Fitzpatrick's a veteran. He can teach him a lot. He can certainly teach him how to be consistently inconsistent and teach him how to go great 3 games and then a rough 3 games. I've got one question left, and Tanner has one question left. We'll let Tanner go. Go ahead, Tanner.
Yep, I was curious to get your thoughts on the selection of Jalen Hurts in the second round, 53rd overall. I didn't think it was that great of a pick, even with Carson Wentz injury history. And, even if he does play like a Taysom Hill type role, you're only getting maybe like 10, 15, 20 snaps a game. And I think in that second round, especially with as deep as a draft as this was, you could have gotten a player that could have contributed right away. So with that said, what were your thoughts on the Eagles picking up Jalen Hurts?
I like the pick because I think Jalen Hurts is a better prospect in many ways than, Herbert as well as Love. So you get a good value there. To your point, the Eagles have made the playoffs in the last 3 seasons, and Carson Wentz has played a combined 10 snaps less than 10 snaps in those games. So they needed to get somebody, I think, to curb, some of the inconsistencies, health-wise. But even then, I just like the opportunity for them to sort of be more multiple, have more players on the field at once that can throw the football. I like the pick, and part of it is just because I view Hurts as a pretty good quarterback. I mean, he led the most efficient offense in college football a season ago, and he was very accurate. If you look at some of the ways, some of his interesting comps, I mean, he has a lot of Deshaun Watson in him. He has, a decent amount, Kyler Murray in him, even though he's not quite as fast. He is deficient in a few areas, but that's exactly why he's a second-round pick and a backup, coming in. I like the pick. I think the Eagles did really well surrounding that pick, which mitigates some of the risks that he might never play. So I think it was a good draft for the Eagles.
Let me get you your thoughts on this. Obviously, this is probably the most talked about, at least from the first round. Jordan Love to the Packers in the first round. I believe it pick 26. There was talk that, Rodgers was upset that, maybe they don't go out and get him a weapon. They obviously were close to making it to the Super Bowl. Then I've heard that he wasn't necessarily mad that they went out and got Love. They understand that, but they didn't confer with him. And, you would think, well, why would they have to? But when you got a franchise quarterback, you got to make those guys kind of happy. Your thoughts on the Packers getting Jordan Love in the first round?
Yeah, I think it's a sort of a philosophical change. I mean, they were a blowout loss in San Francisco away from being, basically the 14-2 one seed in the NFC, and then they were a blowout loss in San Francisco away from making the Super Bowl. It looks like with their picks of Dillon and DeGuara, that they want to be, and their lack of wide receiver picks, that they want to be a run-first team in the mold of San Francisco. And unfortunately, those types of offenses do not lend themselves to alpha quarterbacks the way that, Aaron Rodgers is. I think it's a mistake. I think the fact that some of these coaches prefer quarterbacks like Jared Goff and Jimmy Garoppolo and Kirk Cousins to guys like Rodgers is a character flaw, but that seems to be the way that they're going. Rodgers has a very difficult contract to trade. An even more difficult one to cut over the next few years. So maybe they view, Love, I think rightly as a project. But even then, I don't like the pick. That being said, their entire draft was so bad that was the best pick that they made.
Well, it'll be interesting because, Rodgers and McCarthy kind of went south and soured. It'll be interesting. It seemed like it was a love affair with LaFleur and Rodgers. We'll see how that goes now after that pick. And lastly, Eric, your biggest winner and your biggest loser coming out of the draft as far as a team.
I think the biggest winner has to be the Denver Broncos. They're going to, with KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy, Alberto at tight end, along with the players they picked last year in Reisner, Noah Fant and Cortland Sutton 2 years earlier. But they're going to find out next season if Drew Lock is good enough to play quarterback for them. And to me, that's an important thing. So I think they were the biggest winner. I think the Packers were the biggest loser. Just because I don't think that their offensive philosophy change is going to yield positive results. And they alienated to some degree their franchise players. So it's a little, those would be the two teams I think, separated themselves the most, one in a good way, one in a bad way.
Eric, thanks so much. Great job as always. Be well and stay safe.
You guys too, man. Take care.
All right, Eric Eager from Pro Football Focus. Great analytics guy there. He's a mathematician at heart, and he does a great job with the numbers. You can follow him on Twitter at PFF_Eric. He's one of the hosts of the PFF Forecast podcast, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. Eric Eager always has a lot of great knowledge. We enjoy having him on, and he had the Bills with the second best draft grades in the AFC East, only behind the New England Patriots. Let's take a break. We'll come back right after this.
Got an old car? You can donate it, whether it's running or not, to the United Breast Cancer Foundation and save a life. They'll even come and pick it up for free. The United Breast Cancer Foundation has saved hundreds of women's lives through their free or low-cost breast screen exams. But now they need your help. The United Breast Cancer Foundation wants to save more lives through early detection by offering women free or low-cost breast screening exams. And donating your old car, SUV, or truck, whether it's running or not, helps pay for them. Plus, you get a charitable tax deduction. Help the United Breast Cancer Foundation save lives by donating your old car, SUV, or truck. Call now for free pickup. 800-245-0823. 800-245-0823. 800-245-0823. Call right now. That number again is 800-245-0823.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-368-5184. 800-368-5184. 800-368-5184. That's 800-368-5184.
NFL Films presents Obsess Much, Buddy? It was a beautiful early spring morning, and your family was anticipating quality time with the man of the house. Maybe a picnic in the park, a trip to the zoo, or a game of catch in the backyard. But you had other plans. For you awoke early that Saturday, plopped yourself in front of the tube, and watched hour after hour of the NFL draft. At last, on Sunday, your son begged you to teach him how to throw a curveball. But you replied, "Move your head. I can't see who the Ravens chose as the 240th pick in the 7th round." Truly, this fixation with football prompts the question, obsess much, buddy?
Welcome back to the Joel Oriend Show.
And here he is, America's foremost authority on space, because his head is full of it, Mr. Know-It-All.
On 92.1 The Team.
All right, great chatting there with Eric Eager on Twitter at PFF_Eric. Great foul, and he's got a great podcast. It's the PFF Forecast, and you can grab that wherever podcasts are available. Tanner, let's get your thoughts. What grade do you give? You're a lifelong Bills fan. Give me your thoughts on the Bills draft and what they did.
I like the Bills draft a lot. So essentially their first round pick was Stephon Diggs, and I'm fine with that because, let's say they stay at 22 and draft a wide receiver. You're not going to find a guy that's going to come in at least right away and be the same caliber of wide receiver that Stephon Diggs is. So I'm fine with that. In the second round, they took AJ Epineza, 54th overall. He was PFF's 20th ranked prospect and their second highest edge prospect, only to Chase Young. He did not have a particularly great combine. He ran a 5-second 40, only 17 bench reps, but when you watch him on tape, he plays a lot stronger than that bench press number would lend you to believe. He is a pretty good power rusher. He'll walk offensive linemen back into the quarterback. He's competent as a run defender. He's got some of the strongest hands in the draft. He kind of reminds me of J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt made his career out of bullying people and batting passes down at the line, which A.J. Epineza does. He's not a twitchy, explosive athlete, but he has shown ability to have burst. He's got decent bend for a player his size. He's 6'6", 280. He can win with athleticism from time to time. He's got an okay first step. He's pretty versatile. He can line up on the edge or as a 3-tech in sub packages, which I almost think would be better for him. Can you imagine him and Ed Oliver rushing the passer from the interior on pass downs? Oh, I can't wait for that. And he's got a pretty high motor, so I'm fine with that. And then in the third round, they took Zack Moss. And I know you mentioned that there were some people that were not very high on this pick. I'm not sure why. PFF had him as their second highest rated running back. He broke .33 tackles per rush attempt since his emergence as a true sophomore in 2017. Last year, he forced a missed tackle on 38% of his runs, which was the most by any running back with 150 carries in a season since 2014. He forced 89 missed tackles last year in 2019, which was the second most among running backs in the draft. He averaged last year 4.45 rush yards after contact per attempt, which was the most out of any draft-eligible running back. So I really like that pick. I think Buffalo is doing a good job trying to build, that thunder and lightning smash and dash combination with him and Evan Singletary. In the 4th round, they took wide receiver Gabriel Davis, who is, as Eric Eager mentioned, is a good deep threat. He had 7 receiving touchdowns on throws beyond 20-plus yards last season, which was the most among draft-eligible players. In the 5th round, took Jake Fromm, who was PFF's 5th highest-rated quarterback and their 69th overall rated prospect. And when I was reading their analysis on this pick, they still found a way to slight Josh Allen a little bit because, they like to prod Josh Allen from time to time. They said, quote, Josh Allen has a quality backup for the time being in Jake Fromm. I don't think Josh's job is in imminent danger. I just think this was a good value pick because let's say Jake Fromm is like your 30th highest rated prospect and you can take him at pick 167. I mean, you kind of have to. That's just great value. So I don't think that Josh Allen is in any danger. That's just a good value pick. In the 6th round, they took wide receiver Isiah Hodges, who only had 3 career drops on 179 catchable passes. In the 7th round, they took cornerback Dane Jackson, who allowed a 42% completion rate against him last year and led the University of Pittsburgh with 12 pass breakups. Overall, I would give the Bills an A. I think they had a pretty solid draft, and, I went out and found some other sources to see what grades they gave the Bills. PFF gave them an A-. CBS Sports gave them a B. Yahoo Sports gave them an A-. Sports Illustrated gave them a B. And Bleacher Report, believe it or not, gave them the lowest at a C+.
Now, when I said, a low grade on Moss, kind of in comparison, I think, I saw maybe people on average giving them a B- for Moss, where a lot of the other picks were either A-, B+, Bs. I did see some people give the Bills probably the worst grade on the kicker. I did see some Ds and Fs on the kicker. Were you on the same page with that, or were you happy with the kicker?
I don't think it's the worst decision in the world because you look at Steven Hauschka, he's starting to get up there in age. I know they did just give him an extension recently, but he's 34 years old. So at least to get a guy on the roster that, could potentially push him. Maybe even if he doesn't make the roster this year, you send him down to the practice squad. And then if Steven Hauschka is not good and ends up getting released or just retires, then you have that guy there. So, I'm not mad at that. I don't think there was many glaring holes on this roster. Maybe if there was, there was some obvious hole that could have been plugged with that pick and you take the kicker instead, then maybe I have a problem. But overall, I think this from top to bottom, this is a very talented roster and I'm fine with taking a flyer on a kicker.
Anybody else, anything else jump out at you? Did you hang in there for all the rounds right up till Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick?
I did not. I watched day 1 and then day 2, and I did not watch day 3, but I did keep up with all the Bills picks. I went through all of them here just now, and, I like the picks. It seems like they got some sleepers here in the later rounds with Isiah Hodges, Dane Jackson. It'll be interesting to see what competition they bring to the wide receiver and defensive back room. But overall, I think it was a solid draft class for the Bills. I think ever since Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott have gotten there, they've done a fantastic job with picking up guys like Tre'Davious White, Josh Allen, Tremaine Edmonds, Matt Milano, Devin Singletary, and the job they've done with this roster is just fantastic. I mean, if you would have told me that they would have gone, let's say a wide receiver, Josh Allen's rookie year, having, Kelvin Benjamin, Zay Jones, Andre Holmes to John Brown, Cole Beasley, and Stephon Diggs, I probably would have laughed in your face. So the way that Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott have built this roster, I just can't believe it. They've gone from, 0 to hero in a matter of almost 2 years, and I think this draft was another step towards that. I am perfectly happy with it.
You don't seem to be. I would guess, Tanner, you're not much of a cook. What have you been doing? Have you been getting a lot of takeout delivered, or have you been cooking?
Well, last night I had Mexican from a takeout restaurant, but I've just been doing a little bit of both, I'd say. Beef and bean burritos, I am fantastic at making those. So I've been making a lot of those for myself. SpaghettiOs are always a go-to for me. I've been holding myself over with Skittles and Doritos and a bunch of other healthy foods, but it's been a mixture of both. My dad will cook for us from time to time, so I would like to think I've had a well-balanced diet in that regard.
Why don't we go ahead and throw out that Tanner trivia question?
Which Motown singer tried out for the Detroit Lions in 1970? And the choices are Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, Lionel Richie, or Smokey Robinson?
Good question. I think I can eliminate one of them right off the bat, so I think I got it down to 3 of them. I think I have an idea of the answer, but we won't give that away yet. Now, there's been a lot of great classic Westwood One sports games on 92.1 The Team. A great slate of NFL games this past week, Super Bowl games, playoff games. Tanner, what games do we have coming up this week from Westwood One Sports that people can check out here on 92.1 The Team?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All through the month of May, Westwood One will be broadcasting a variety of classic games. First one coming up is on May 4th. These will all be airing at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, by the way. First up on May the 4th, Super Bowl 23 between the San Francisco 49ers and Cincinnati Bengals. Then on May 7th, it'll be the 2012 AFC Divisional game, the Baltimore Ravens at the Denver Broncos. On May 11th, it'll be Super Bowl 51, the New England Patriots against the Atlanta Falcons. And then on May 14th, it'll be the 2014 NFC Championship game between the Green Bay Packers and the Seattle Seahawks. On May 18th, it'll be Super Bowl 43 between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Arizona Cardinals. On May 21st, it'll be the 2009 NFC Championship game, the Minnesota Vikings at the New Orleans Saints. And May 25th, Super Bowl numero uno between the Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs. And last but not least, on May 28th, the 06 AFC Championship game, the New England Patriots at the Indianapolis Colts.
All right, there you go. What a great slate of classic games from Westwood One Sports right here on 92.1 The Team. That last one, of course, Peyton Manning versus Tom Brady, one of their memorable matchups that they had in the postseason. If you want a complete list of those games, you can go to our website, 921theteam.com. Let's take a break. We've got a lot to get to here in the last hour of the show. Coming up, we've got Tyler Kirk coming on from NFLMocks.com. He'll give his grades on the Buffalo Bills. And we'll have Ryan Leaf on, former second overall pick in the 1998 draft, only behind Peyton Manning. He's now working for the Pac-12 Network and ESPN. We've got a lot to talk to Ryan Leaf about. He's lived quite the life. Let's take a break. We'll be back right after this.
I am a non-attorney spokesperson representing a team of lawyers who help people that have been injured or wronged. If you've been involved in a serious car, truck, or motorcycle accident or injured at work, you have rights, and you may be entitled to money for your suffering. Don't accept an offer you get from an insurance company until you talk to a lawyer, and we represent some of the best personal injury lawyers you can find. Tough lawyers that will fight to win your case, and they're so good they stake their reputation on it by only getting paid if you win. So if you've been in a serious car, truck, or motorcycle accident or hurt on the job, find out today for free what kind of compensation you may be entitled to. Call the legal helpline right now.
800-791-4478. 800-791-4478. 800-791-4478. That's 800-791-4478.
Giovanni's and the Giovanellos want to thank their customers for 40 years of patronage. Here's a message from Giovanni's Restaurant on Seneca Street in Hornell. From now on, Giovanni's is only taking credit card orders from those who call ahead. Giovanni's follows the most stringent practices for cleaning, wearing masks and gloves, and social distancing. Out of a further abundance of caution, Giovanni's is no longer doing walk-ins, only deliveries and curbside pickups. Giovanni's will closely monitor CDC guidelines and will only modify their new rules when it becomes appropriate to do so. Again, Giovanni's thanks their loyal customers for 40 years of patronage.
92.1 The Team. WCKR Cornell. Welcome back to the Joel Oriend Show.
Fellas, listen up. All you ever ask for is an opportunity. You got it today. Where else would you rather be than right here, right now?
On 92.1 The Team.
All right, welcome back in. Got an opportunity. If you want to win, we had Don Beebe on the show a couple weeks ago. If you'd like a copy of Don Beebe's book, shoot me an email at 921theteam@gmail.com. That's 921theteam@gmail.com. Or text me at 607-363-TEAM. 607-363-TEAM. First person in is going to get a copy of Don Beebe's book. Let's talk some current Buffalo Bills. A lot of the national publications giving the Buffalo Bills high grades and high praise for their draft picks this year in the NFL Draft. Before we bring our next guest on, let's hear from Buffalo Bills head coach Sean McDermott and his thoughts.
Listen, we're definitely further along than where we were when we got here, and that's the part of the goal. You want to be able to say that. Our roster, give a lot of credit to Brandon and his staff. They've done a phenomenal job of, and not just via the draft, but also it's a 365-day-a-year job.
Let's bring on NFL draft expert from fansided.com and NFLmocks.com. He did the grades for the Buffalo Bills draft for NFLmocks.com. You can follow him on Twitter at TKirk3. That's TKIRK3. It's Tyler Kirk. Tyler, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate your time.
Let's get your overall grade or overall thoughts on the Bills draft.
Yeah, so I think from top to bottom, the Buffalo Bills did a fantastic job addressing the best player available on the board, especially in my opinion, as far as I had the players graded. They pretty much took the best player available in almost every scenario. The draft kind of fell perfectly to them into their lap, even without a first-round pick. I gave the Buffalo Bills overall grade, from the second round to the seventh. If you want to throw Stephon Diggs in there in the first round, I'm giving it an A grade.
Your thoughts on getting Diggs over any of these wide receivers in the class?
Yeah, so Stephon Diggs is one of my favorite players in the league. He's a fantastic route runner. He does a great job of separating in and out of routes. I know his situation in Minnesota put off a lot of people as far as his attitude, but he does bring a great demeanor to a team. I think that he is young, but he's mature for his age, coming from, the Diggs family, a lot of background with their family. He's had to come up pretty quickly, kind of being as a father figure to his younger brother who got drafted by the Cowboys this year. I think, he's a fantastic fit in Buffalo. He's definitely a bona fide number one receiver.
Who do you think was your favorite pick overall in this haul by the Buffalo Bills? It could be from a value perspective or just the best talent they got. Overall, your favorite pick by the Bills in this draft?
Yeah, so this is a tough one because I love there's a lot of picks that I could go with this choice. I would say my favorite pick, I like Isiah Hodges from the receiver that they took in the sixth round, pick 207. I did a post about a week before the draft of Buffalo Bills late round sleepers, and I actually, he was one of the names that I put on there for them. This kid he's fantastic with his hands. He arguably could have the best hands in the draft class, in my opinion. He really is. He's a tall receiver, 6'3", contorts his body in the air very well, adjusts and make catches. He's a pretty good deep threat receiver. I think that he needs to gain more strength at the next level with the strength and conditioning coach. But I think that year in the offseason program, I think he'd be a steal. I would lean towards Isiah Hodges, but you can't argue A.J. Epinesa in the second round either. I think he's obviously a first-round bona fide talent that fell to them in the second round. He's a perfect fit for what the Buffalo Bills do. If you think of a Buffalo Bill player, A.J. Epinesa comes to mind. He's a hard-working player. nose to the ground, can kick inside and rush from interior. Being 6'6", 280 pounds, he can rush from outside, inside. He's a true grit player, and I think either one of those picks, were definitely a steal for the Bills.
I thought the pick maybe the Bills would get some flack on, but I think because it was in the 5th round and they didn't reach was the Fromm pick. Your thoughts on them going out and getting Jake Fromm?
I love that. I mean, as far as value, you talk about value, I think Jake Fromm was the best value pick that the Bills had throughout all 7 rounds. He shouldn't have been on the board when in the 5th round. I had him as a 3rd-round grade. This kid, he's got some serious accuracy to his game. What he lacks in arm strength, he definitely is hardworking. Definitely good ball placement is a strength of his. I definitely think he could throw every ball on the route. Timing, he's very good with anticipation. I think that's definitely a strength. A little bit on the column I wrote as far as the Buffalo Bills grade, where Josh Allen can kind of get away with anticipation because he's such a strong arm. I think, Jake Fromm is definitely, his anticipation is top tier in this class, and, he should have been gone in the 3rd round, in my opinion. And when he left into the 5th round, I think that there's no way that the Bills could pass on him there.
So you mentioned earlier, overall, you gave the Bills draft an A. Where do you think that ranks among the rest of the league? Are we talking top 10, top 5? How good do you think their class was in relation to some of the other best draft classes in the league?
Just scouting all the teams, kind of seeing how they drafted, I think that the Baltimore Ravens, Dallas Cowboys, there's a couple other teams that had pretty solid grades, but I would put the Bills up there in the top 5. I think that as far as a value point and as far as exactly, the Bills did a fantastic job in free agency to kind of set them up for this draft. They didn't have to they had no glaring needs as far as, rushing to the board for a need pick throughout this draft. They got to let the draft come to them. And I think they did an absolute great job. I think one, small thing that Bills fans should keep in mind, the receivers that they drafted are both 6'3". Trading for Stephon Diggs, 6 foot. I think I know they got John Brown and Cole Beasley who are under 6 foot, but I think they're leaning towards getting, Josh Allen some bigger targets to throw to down the field. I think that was a big emphasis, and I think they did a great job with that.
I think the lowest grades I saw for 2 players, I want to get your thoughts and your grades. One was Zack Moss, but I say low grade compared to the A's and the B pluses on some of the picks they were getting. He was comparatively a little bit lower, was the Zack Moss. And then, I think maybe it was B minus. I think I was seeing for him maybe, the grades. And then the kicker. I think some people gave them a C, D, or F on the kicker, which, in a way, I kind of get it. I mean, a lot of people just go undrafted kickers, unless you really believe, this kicker is going to be special. Now, again, they didn't reach for him. It's not like they took him in the 3rd round. Give me your thoughts on those 2 picks.
So we'll start with Zack Moss. I love the pick for Zack Moss. I think that he complements, what they already have on their offense with the running back they have. I mean, if you think about Singletary, he's very elusive. He's a home run hitter. He's consistent. I think that Zack Moss is a perfect complement to his game. He's a tough downhill runner. The Bills can kind of switch it up as they need. They can go finesse, speed. They can pound you with the rock when Zack Moss comes in. The thing with Moss is he keeps his pad level even. He's very balanced. I think that he was, out of all the running backs in this class, I think that he complements Singletary the most, because you don't want to get a running back to, compete with Singletary as a starter. He's already proven to you he's a starter. You want to add some good depth and good competition, and I think Zack Moss is perfect for that. 3rd down back, goal line. He gives you that consistent downhill change of pace type back that Singletary and him can kind of rotate, and I like it to keep Singletary fresh throughout the season. I think I gave that grade an A- on the website. I think that, the fit there was perfect for me. Maybe not so much the best value pick that the Bills had, but the fit couldn't have been a better fit. Now, as far as the kicker goes, I'm not a fan of drafting a kicker, in the 3rd, 4th round, or a punter for that matter. But the Bills got him, in the later rounds, the kicker that they drafted, they got him in the 6th round. This kid was pretty good. He was accurate. You know, if you look at Stephen Hauschka's season last year and the year before that, he was like 78% field goal percentage, which is not normal. His normal. You know, normally throughout his career, he's in upper 80s, lower 90s, and he's getting up there in age. You know, I think that this move gives some competition to the 34-year-old Hauschka. I think that, you know, where Hauschka struggled was in the mid to long range field goals, and this kicker in college did a fantastic job of that. So I don't hate this grade at all. I do think there were some good players available to be had at that spot, but I understand what the Bills are doing here. Competition at the kicking spot can win and lose you games, especially, you know, when you're playing in Buffalo, where in the wintertime, you know, the weather starts coming in and you've got to have a kicker that gets you some points. I like the pick.
So on the website, I see in your bio here, you say you're a huge Dallas Cowboys fan. So that means you got a pretty good look, at least I would assume, at Josh Allen last year when the Bills and the Cowboys played on Thanksgiving. And this year, there's not going to be really many excuses for Josh Allen with, you know, the talent at the skill positions he has in an elite defense. Do you think Josh Allen is the franchise quarterback for Buffalo?
Absolutely, no question about it. I remember that game very vividly. I was not happy with that game. Cole Beasley, you know, torched us for a touchdown in that game. But the Buffalo Bills team is for real. They're coached very well from top to bottom. Their 4-3 defense is fantastic. It seemed like we couldn't get much going on offense. You guys were turning over, you know, a bunch of turnovers as far as the Cowboys were concerned. Josh Allen, you know, whether he's keeping the plays alive with his feet, as far as his decision-making was getting, you know, better and progressively better throughout the season, he is definitely the franchise quarterback. He, you know, with the weapons that they're adding, I love the idea of going tall here as receiver throughout the draft. I love that idea. Nothing wrong with Cole Beasley or John Brown, but I think that, you know, when you have a quarterback that stands tall in the pocket, can get out and move, bigger targets are easier to throw to. And, you know, Josh Allen has a cannon. He can throw from anywhere on the field. You know, I think the Bills are one of the most complete teams in the league, honestly, with you. You know, with the first round getting Stephon Diggs coming in, that's going to take a lot of pressure. That's going to give Josh Allen a bona fide number one receiver. Then you go in the second round, you get Epinenza, who, if you kick him inside with Ed Oliver, you know, that's a mismatch for any team, or you can have him rush on the outside. You know, overall, they just did a fantastic team. But to answer your question, Josh Allen is definitely the franchise quarterback.
As a Cowboys fan, let me ask you about the coaching change. After all, we do have, as a Cowboy fan, let me ask you about the coaching change. We do have some Cowboy fans in this area. After all, Dallas is called America's team. We're in the NFC East territory with the New York Giants somewhat. Former Hornell native Mike Waffle won a Super Bowl ring with the Giants in 2007. So Jason Garrett was cut loose by Jerry Jones after a long tenure. Just couldn't get the Cowboys back to the Super Bowl. I know sometimes you do need a new voice in that locker room. Sometimes the message starts to fall on deaf ears. Garrett now back with the Giants as their offensive coordinator. And I know some Cowboy fans, you know, think that's pretty funny because they weren't real impressed with Garrett's play calling there in Dallas over the last few years. Mike McCarthy, former Green Bay Packer head coach, won a Super Bowl as a head coach with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. Give me your thoughts on Garrett's departure and your new head coach, Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, so I'll start off by saying, you know, Jason Garrett going to New York, I think that was kind of written in the sand there that he was headed there. Jason Garrett, class act from top to bottom. You know, the Giants organization is class act from top to bottom, so he fits right in perfectly. Going back to where he was there before, so he's going right back to where he was. Nothing but respect for Jason Garrett. I do think the change for Mike McCarthy in Dallas, I like the change. Mike McCarthy has been known throughout his career, even before the Packers, was developing quarterbacks. You know, I think that Dak Prescott, I think that he developed a lot last year. I think that with McCarthy, it's only going to help. His offense is easy for quarterbacks and young players to develop quickly, makes the read easier for quarterbacks, makes the transition better. I like the hire. I think that he is he's a guy that wants to do things his way, and I think Jerry Jones is kind of understanding with that. You could tell by the draft process from what the Joneses, Steven and Jerry both said as far as, or even our, VP, our scouting VP, Will McClay, saying that, Mike McCarthy had his say in a lot of the draft picks. And, there's nothing wrong with having a coach with an input. I love that. They went and got a center to replace Travis Frederick, who recently retired. I'm all for Mike McCarthy. I'm excited to see the change. Dallas has needed some change. We haven't won. We haven't, got to an NFC championship game in a long time. As Mike McCarthy has a good roster on this, on his team right now, whenever these guys can get back to work, I think they did a killer job in the draft. Sky's the limit for the Cowboys.
Tyler, thanks so much for giving us a few minutes of your time, and we'd like to have you on again sometime. Thanks so much.
I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
All right, there you go. Tyler Kirk of Fansided.com and NFLMox.com. You can follow him on Twitter at TKirk3. That's TKIRK, the number 3. If you're a helmet head and love NFL, he is a very good follow. Let's take a break. Coming up, we have Ryan Lee, former standout quarterback at Washington State. He was drafted by San Diego 2nd overall in the 98 draft, only behind Peyton Manning. We'll talk to him about his time at Washington State, his take on the Bills draft picks. I also want to pick his brain about Syracuse University football. I want to talk to him about his new podcast platform and lots more. It's Ryan Leaf up next, right after this.
Maple City Savings wants the Hornell area to know they are here to assist you with your banking needs even in these uncertain times. Their ATMs are available 24/7 for withdrawals and deposits. Their drive-ups remain open for deposits, withdrawals, and loan payments during normal hours. Over the phone, they can assist with any issues related to purchases, online transactions, loan payment transfers, and debit card processing questions. Phone 607-324-1822. With online banking at MapleCitySavings.com, they offer commercial ACH transfers, bill pay, e-statements, mobile and merchant deposits, and so much more. They even offer online deposit account openings for existing and new customers. Also online, you'll be able to complete a mortgage application or request a pre-qualification so you can shop for your new home. They've been serving the local community since 1906 and are here to stay. Maple City Savings Bank, FDIC insured and an equal housing lender.
Are you tired of arthritis pain? Tired of not sleeping well? Now you can feel great again. Have you heard about Cbd Oil or even tried it in the past? Certified by Designs, made in the USA, Cbd products are lab tested and 10 times stronger. That means your knee or back pain may be gone 10 times faster, and you may sleep 10 times better with no side effects. Say no to your prescription meds for pain or sleep problems, and say yes to all-natural CBD products. Call now. You'll have your relief in days with free shipping. Learn for yourself how our exclusive nanotechnology helps you absorb 90% of the active ingredients of CBD oil with none of the high effects. Say goodbye to your pain and sleepless nights, and say yes to all-natural CBD products and free shipping. 800-686-5470. 800-686-5470. That's 800-686-5470.
It's the Joel Oriend Show.
I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. I can tell you I don't have money. But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. I will look for you. I will find you. The next part is very important, and I will take you.
Good luck. On 92.1 The Team.
Just a reminder, our interview with new inductee into the Section 5 Football Hall of Fame, Coach Wayne Carroll, 32 years as a head coach in Section 5. That is up at the website, 921theteam.com. There's a link right there to the interview on the YouTube page. Also, if you want a chance or you want to win a copy of Don Beebe's book, 6 Rings from Nowhere, you can email me at 921theteam@gmail.com. That's 921theteam@gmail.com, or text me 607-363-TEAM. That's 607-363-TEAM for a copy of Don Beebe's book, 6 Rings from Nowhere. Our next guest was a standout quarterback at Washington State, leading the Cougs to their first Rose Bowl appearance in 60 years, almost knocking off Michigan in that game. He came in third in the Heisman Trophy voting in 97, only behind Charles Woodson and Peyton Manning. He was selected second overall by the San Diego Chargers in the 98 draft, only behind Peyton Manning to the Indianapolis Colts. He now is pretty much a media mogul. He's all over the place, and we'll tell you where you can find him. It's ironic because for the longest time, he was probably best known for this infamous outburst towards Jay Posner, a San Diego Tribune reporter.
Hey, don't talk to me, all right? Knock it off!
Now he's on the other side of it as part of the media. He works for the Pac-12 network. ESPN has hired him as a college football analyst. He also has his own podcast company, Believe. That's BLEAV. It's Ryan Leaf. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Let's jump back to the 98 Rose Bowl. First question. Would you have ever guessed that the backup quarterback on the other sideline of that game would still be playing in the NFL today?
I tell people this joke all the time that, when I'm warming up, Mike Price, my old head coach, and I usually are watching the other quarterbacks warm up, and there was this tall, lanky, really skinny kid with just shoulder pads that went so far outside and these little, toothpick arms that came down. He wore number 10, and his last name on the back of his jersey was Brady. And I looked at Coach Price and I said, Coach, that's going to be the greatest quarterback to ever play in the NFL.
And that's why we're having you on, because you're a great prognosticator if you were able to pick that. Second question.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Second question. I think if that game happens in 2018, the end goes viral and it's a much different outcome. So if people don't remember, you guys are down 21-16. You're driving as the clock is running down. You have a big penalty that backs you up, but then you guys execute a perfect hook and ladder that gets you down to Michigan's 26. So you actually would have been even further down if you hadn't had that delay a game or the illegal procedure. But the ball's at the 26. 2 seconds left. The clock stops because in college, first down, clock stops to move the chains. You guys get up to the line and you spike the ball, and it looks like there's 1 second left. And on ABC, if you go back and watch, and ABC vice president of programming says it's synchronized to the scoreboard in the stadium, there should have been a second left. Now, I know afterwards, the story was you were still down on the field and, you had a cigar with your family and you didn't let it get you down too much. You guys played a great game and you gave it everything you could. But going back, do you think that ending would be so much more viral and talked about if that happened maybe 2 years ago?
Yeah, definitely. With social media and everything. They, in fact, changed the rule after that. Now you cannot spike it unless you have 3 seconds left on the clock, just to take any of that out of there. Our third string running back was in the game because our first 2 stringers had gotten hurt during the game. And so we ran that play, something we practiced, for the 3 years I was there, and we only ran it once, and it was in the Rose Bowl. And we executed it perfectly. Only problem is the running back, who was the third string guy, instinct took over, and he planted his foot.
Right.
And tried to get more yards instead of stepping out of bounds. And unfortunately, I should have just called the play, ran one so we could at least had a shot.
Right.
But you're in those moments and your instinct takes over and you do what you normally do. And let's spike it. Let's stop the clock. Let's get back together in the huddle and call a final play to try to win this thing.
Ryan, you were a former NFL quarterback. You went number 2 overall in the 1998 NFL draft. Peyton Manning, of course, went number 1 overall. So I do want to talk about a little bit about the NFL draft and look at it from the Buffalo Bills perspective specifically. Most people have given them a rather high grade in terms of overall draft, somewhere in the A's or B's. Some weren't too high on Zack Moss, the running back out of Utah. But the one I want to ask you about in particular, because there's a little bit of a controversy surrounding it, is the selection of Jake Fromm, the quarterback out of Georgia. Now, there's 2 ways to look at it. One is it's a low-risk pick that offers some competition, and if Josh Allen is indeed the guy, the franchise quarterback, then a selection like this shouldn't upset or rattle him too much. Now, the other thing about this is it could turn into a Jimmy Garoppolo Patriots situation. If you can develop Fromm and maybe get him some playtime sparingly, whether it be in the preseason or heaven forbid if Allen gets hurt in the regular season or something, you can then build some equity and trade Fromm for some better assets than the original 5th round pick you spent on him. So with that said, your thoughts on the Bills taking a flyer in the 5th round on Jake Fromm?
Well, that's it. It's a 5th round pick. So I think if something like that were to play out where they were able to get some assets for it down the road, or, God forbid, Josh struggles or is injured and he comes in and is able to contribute in a healthy way because the team is pretty well stacked together, then it's a positive. If they would have went any higher with the pick, I probably would have had more of a, disappointing reaction like the fans may have had. But with a 5th round pick, I think that was probably a good bet for them. You're never going to go wrong if you have a solid backup quarterback in that league, as we've seen many, many times during a season. I mean, even Patrick Mahomes last year missed 2 games, right? And the young Moore kid had to come in and play the way through just to get them through that process. So it's a matter of having a full roster, period. And they felt comfortable with that. I think the Zack Moss pick is great. I covered him a ton at Utah, and he is about as special a player as you can imagine. He lifted that team up. He is special between the tackles. He's got breakaway speed if he needs it. He's going to be a guy that they're going to like. I like him to a young Marshawn Lynch when he first got to Buffalo, and maybe this time they'll be able to keep and hold on to a guy like that for a long period of time.
Could the same be said for the Green Bay Packers, though? Because unlike the Bills taking a late-round flyer on a quarterback, the Packers invested a premium draft pick on Jordan Love out of Utah State. Now, if you're Aaron Rodgers coming off an NFC championship and knowing you may be entering your twilight years, you probably want a wide receiver or some other offensive weapon, but instead your team goes out and drafts what could be your heir apparent. Now, Aaron Rodgers, he was in Jordan Love's shoes once before too, with backing up Brett Favre in his early years. But either way, as a quarterback, when they go out and get someone in the 1st round, do you think that's something Aaron felt betrayed or put off by?
Yeah, I spoke to somebody close to Aaron the night of the draft, and it wasn't so much that they drafted him. I mean, they've drafted quarterbacks. They drafted a pretty good quarterback from UCLA a few years back, Hundley, who was a backup for a while. He understands that you have to have a roster. You have to have a quarterback room. That's the way it goes. I think he's more upset around the fact that they did not discuss this with him ahead of time. Because when he went into the draft, he anticipated they were going to put some assets around him. I mean, they were literally a game away from the Super Bowl. And in particular, they could have used that 1st round pick on a plethora of those defensive stalwarts from LSU. Instead, they go get a quarterback that, after looking at it, and how long quarterbacks are playing, especially ones who take care of their body, understand defenses, do the right thing, like Aaron Rodgers, like Tom Brady, like Drew Brees, guys that are playing into their 40s. I could understand if they thought, at the end of this contract in 3 years, they're going to move on. But there's a good chance that Aaron Rodgers is playing at an elite level, could get another contract and foreseeably go into his early 40s. And that means Jordan Love never plays.
Right.
And if that's the case, it is an absolute wasted pick and not one that's trying to help somebody win a championship. After this is all said and done, you might say that the Green Bay Packers may have been the worst possible landing spot for Aaron Rodgers in terms of seeing the team and organization behind him try to cultivate a championship for him. And yet despite all that, he found a way to win a Super Bowl championship while he was there.
On the phone with us, Ryan Leaf, second overall pick in the 1998 draft by the San Diego Chargers. He's now, quite frankly, a media darling. He has a book. He's a college football analyst for ESPN and the Pac-12 Network. He has his own podcast company. Ryan, I want to get your take on SU football, because sometimes when you're too close to the situation, you're only looking through the donut hole and not looking at the whole donut. You're a Pac-12 guy, but you cover college football nationally. I like Dino Babers. I hope he's the coach to get them back into the top 25, but it's just so frustrating because, you know, since they've been in the top 25, at least consistently, programs like Boise State and Utah and Louisville and Clemson and other programs that have not been a predominant powerhouse have been able to get into the top 25 and even contend for a national championship. And SU has just not been able to do that. I think part of it is they just have not been able to get an NFL caliber quarterback. Ryan Nassib was okay. You know, he was in the NFL a little bit for the New York Giants, backing up Eli Manning. Eric Dungy was good, but not an NFL caliber quarterback. Do they just need an NFL caliber quarterback to get them back on the map and back in the top 25 and in the national conversation?
No, not necessarily. You build a program around consistency and stability. And if you can keep Dino Babers in that spot for a lengthy period of time, he's going to get to a place where he builds a foundation. That's just been the thing, you know. The instant satisfaction world we live in, you're not allowed to build something and build it for how you need it. And Dino Babers, I think, is a guy that can get that done there. Sure. The quarterback position, it's something, but you look at Utah. Utah was a perfect example. Utah had good quarterback play, but not great. Guy that doesn't get drafted. He was all Pac-12 last year. Doesn't get drafted. Goes as an undrafted free agent. One of the most accurate passers in the league, but, you know, not overwhelmingly special, but the rest of the team is. The running game, defensively, they had six defensive starters drafted in this year's NFL draft, and they were all two-star, three-star guys. Nobody special necessarily. They develop it well, and that's what Dino's got to continue to do. He's got to develop players so that in years 2, 3, and 4, those careers in Syracuse, they're substantial, and they make a run and can play for an ACC title. And that's, you know, right now it's Clemson and everybody else. And until somebody else can step up and be as consistent for a lengthy period of time, then it's just going to be, you know, in one year and out the other.
Ryan, people, you know, obviously know your story. You've been in the headlines for many years. There was some downtimes. You turned a corner. You've made a great comeback. I just think it's so awesome. And I think it's, you've kind of lived that American dream twice, like I said, right? I mean, when you're playing flag football, you never think you're going to be the second pick in the NFL draft and be an NFL quarterback. Then it goes bad for you. And you've talked about when the lowest points were in prison and stuff. And now essentially, you know, you're back on top. You're a go-to person, a voice in college football. The major networks love you. And I think for twofold, one, you're talented, obviously. And I think you're just a genuine person. Where did you hit that point where you said, okay, maybe you do a couple interviews and then maybe the phone rings a little bit more and you say, you know what, I'm doing great things. I'm doing stuff with transcending recovery community. I'm being an honest person. I'm doing good stuff. And maybe I'm turning the corner and something, you know, really good can happen to me here if I keep on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, you know, none of that is something I thought of, right? It was all about, telling my story in the hopes that somebody that was out there who was in the same place that I had been, you know, let's say 5 years previous, would hear it and understand that there's hope and that there's a solution. That was the only motive I had going forward by doing that. Then when you get to a place where you feel really comfortable with who you see in the mirror, you start to think, okay, I don't need this entirely to define who I am. I can still achieve the goals that I had set forth years ago, things I wanted to do. I wanted to get back in and around the sport that gave me everything that I really, really loved, and that was college football. So, I mean, there were three things. I there was an entertainment side of things. There's also a voice in my head telling me to go to law school to try to be an advocate for those nonviolent drug offenders that were languishing in prison and things like that. So I had a bunch of different concepts. But one of them was, hey, you know, I loved what Kirk Herbstreit did, and I loved what Joe Klatt got to do. So I thought that would be a great job, one where I could actually have a really positive platform to give back, but also be a part of you know, the college football narrative and environment. And that's what I was looking for. So I started at the bottom. You know, I started doing a radio show at like 2 a.m. for free. And anytime I got asked to do anything, I said I'd do it, you know, and I've worked really, really hard. And luckily for me, the likes of Steve Cohen at Sirius XM and the folks at ESPN gave me an opportunity. There have been a ton of people that have supported me through this process. And I just, every opportunity I get, I work my tail off for it, and I don't take any of it for granted.
Tell me real quickly about the podcast platform before we have to cut you loose here. I've checked it out. You've got one up there, and there's some other just incredible wide-ranging podcasts on this platform you have.
Yeah, a friend of mine came to me about 2 years ago, and we were kind of trying to figure out how to just build our content and our brand a little bit more about putting up together a podcast. So we initially just thought we kind of put a podcast together. And then we started thinking about, well, what if we had like a bunch of different podcasts in the LA area where we have all the sporting teams, and you could have a podcast for, you know, your team in your local market. And if we could build a business plan like that, we could ultimately take it to, let's say, Houston or Boston or wherever and try to sell it in that. And we've grown exponentially. I think we're up around 300 shows on our podcast network. And, wow. And you know, I do one just because I want to, you know, stay a part of what my business is. Mm-hmm. And it's good for new and upcoming broadcasters right out of school. My co-host on my Pac-12 show is straight out of the University of Oregon, really energized about being a broadcaster, and it will give them valuable experience, and it's one that, you know, we know about. We know about the Pac-12, and it's great for him to get an opportunity to do some work on that end of things, and the network's just blossomed and blossomed and blossomed, and it's gotten bigger, and, you know, we look forward to what it does in the next few years. A business that didn't necessarily cost us a lot to get started has really, you know, taken off. It's one of those neat, you know, American storylines, which I love to be a part of.
You mentioned your former college football coach, Mike Price, and he's had an interesting career just like you. He's had some real highs and some real lows, some rocky, tough spots, some controversy. He started out at a small school, Weber State, moves to Washington State, brings in Drew Bledsoe. Drew goes on to the NFL. You're on record as saying you chose Washington State because of Mike Price. You and Mike get the Cougars to the Rose Bowl for the first time in 60 years. Jason Gesser is a good quarterback after you at Washington State, and you three quarterbacks and the success during that time helped Mike get the holy grail of college football coaching jobs at Alabama. Things go south. I actually had a chance to talk with Mike when he got the job at UTEP years ago. Seemed like a great guy. He didn't seem to be able to turn the corner as much as you, Ryan, and again change that narrative or maybe the mindset on him. I think maybe he's just, you again were so open and raw and vulnerable and said, you know, here I am, ask me anything.
Well, I was
did this.
honest. I was, all my stuff was true.
Right.
That's the difference with Mike Price. All the stuff that was written about him and done to him was false. You know, that's why he's sitting in a $20 million house on Lake Coeur d'Alene, because Sports Illustrated had to pay him a defamation lawsuit because of it.
Right.
So, you know, that's the difference there. You can't be open and honest about something if it's not the truth.
Right.
You know, and therefore, you know, Mike has had to live with this speculation over him for so long because, you know, he hasn't been able to discuss it because of non-disclosure with the giant time, you know, company Time. And it was really a couple of assistant coaches that really, really put him in a bad position with their actions and never really had to pay the consequences for it.
Well, and as you know, the more you fight it and yell and scream and try to convince people of your innocence, a lot of people just take that as being guilty. Do you and Mike still have a relationship? Do you guys still talk?
Oh, God, yeah. He's like a second father to me. Him and his wife, Joyce, have been really special pieces and parts of my life, and they will be for as long as they're around.
Ryan, thanks so much for your insight, your honesty. We appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming on. Great job, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to you again.
You bet. I appreciate the time. Thanks.
There you go. Ryan Leaf, what a story. Certainly could be made into a book or a TV miniseries or a movie. That is for sure. He's had some ups and downs, but he certainly doesn't shy away from his past, and he's open and honest about it, and he's much more humble. He does some great work with Transcending Recovery Community. You can check that out as well. He gives back now, so he is certainly more of a grounded human being than when he was in the NFL and went through that time. Let's take a break. We'll come back with more right after this.
It's 92 on the team contest and promo rules time. Listen up. Here we go. Don't call to win more than once a month. Employees of 92 on the team cannot win the prize. Don't forget to pick up the prize within 30 days. If you call to win, your voice goes on the radio. You're responsible for all taxes associated with winning. You cannot exchange the prize for cash or a different prize. Welcome back to the Joel Oriend Show.
You are correct, sir.
On 92 on the team.
Alrighty, let's do some house cleaning here as we wrap up. Don't forget our interview with new Section 5 Football Hall of Famer Wayne Carroll is up online. You can go to 921theteam.com. There's a link up there to the interview on the YouTube page. We chat about his career at Romulus, at Bath Haverling, some of his former teams, his championship teams, the 0-1 game that was a thrilling overtime game against Hornell up at Fauver Stadium. He talks about that game and how things finished at Bath Haverling and a lot more. So you can go to 921theteam.com and check out that interview there. Also, if you would like to win a book from Don Beebe, former wide receiver of the Buffalo Bills and the Green Bay Packers. He went to 4 Super Bowls with the Buffalo Bills and went to a Super Bowl and won with Brett Favre and the Green Bay Packers in 1996. It's 6 rings out of nowheres. Don Beebe. So if you'd like a copy of that book, email me, 921theteam@gmail.com, or you can text me 607-363-TEAM. That's 607-363-TEAM. And you can get yourself a copy of Don Beebe's book. Now, coming up next, we got some big guests next week. You're going to want to stay tuned. Check out our Facebook page, My Team Media, and our Twitter page as well. We're going to have some big announcements on some guests for next week's show. Should be a great show, I think. So you're going to want to check us out on social media. So here we are on May 2nd, and I don't think we've had a live sporting event since the middle to end of March. It was probably an NBA game or an NHL game. I think they were in the conference tournaments in college basketball, and NASCAR was underway, and baseball was in spring training. And that's pretty much when it got shut down. Now, there's been leagues that have wanted to start going, and, it's kind of like they're all in competition to get underway and start and be the first ones to get going, because you're going to get the most eyeballs if you are the first league to come back, especially, if it's going to be with empty stands, because more people are going to be watching on TV. So, there's been talk of Major League Baseball starting up multiple times. They've talked about that. The NBA and the NHL have talked about taking over a empty college campus and playing their games there. We all remember Dana White wanted to rent an island for the UFC 249. Would it be MLS? What would be the first sport to come back? Well, I think we have our answer. What sport is going to come back first?
I'll be back.
I'll be back. I'll be right back.
I'll be back. I'll be back. I'll be back.
Ha! You did not going to say that, did you?
That's what you always say.
I do. She'll be back. Stay here. I'll be back.
I might be back.
I'll be back. You've been back enough. I'll be back. I'm back. I'm back.
They're back.
I'm back.
They're back. All right, Tanner, tell us who is back and when.
NASCAR is coming back apparently on Sunday, May 17th. The Cup Series and Xfinity Series will be back starting May 17th. They will have 7 races over an 11-day span at 2 different tracks at Darlington and Charlotte. So for those NASCAR fans and sports fans in general, that's something to look forward to, although they won't be without their kind of restrictions and limitations. From what I understand, the races at Darlington are going to be held with no fans, and then as for the other races, they'll obviously have to be significantly modified in accordance with CDC, OSHA, and state and local government recommendations. There will be no practice sessions for any event, and qualifying will only be held for the Coca-Cola 600, and other adjustments are going to have to be made, like mandating the use of protective equipment. Every individual that enters any facility will be subject to health screenings, and of course, social distancing protocols will have to be maintained throughout the event. But we can rejoice because sports in some form are back. Now, no dates beyond May 27th have been announced yet, but NASCAR officials have said on multiple occasions that the sanctioning body intends to run a full 36-race Cup Series slate in 2020. So will that happen? It's still up in the air, but this is a promising start.
So the last race for NASCAR was on Sunday, March 8th in Phoenix. Now, Steve O'Donnell, NASCAR Executive Vice President and Chief Racing Development Officer, had this to say on a conference call about NASCAR coming back.
Our return in Darlington is going to be in an environment that we need to make sure that we're taking all measures available to us for the safety of our competitors and certainly for the local community. We realize up front that it's a huge responsibility for us as a sport. But I'm also confident in the group we've gathered to put this plan together, and our entire industry has come together to believe in the plan we've put together. We're certainly going to learn as we go, but the process that we've put in place, I think, gives the industry the confidence that we can be first, and then we can do this in Darlington.
Tanner, do you think this opens the door and gets the other leagues like the NBA and Major League Baseball and MLS, whose seasons were already underway, do you think this gives them the green light to really start, moving forward with plans to possibly get underway?
Well, I was thinking about that, and I certainly hope that's the case. I hope this thing works out, because the way I was looking at it is this is kind of the guinea pig, I feel like, for the rest of the pro sports leagues. If this goes off without a hitch and nobody's health is compromised, then maybe that brings back the NFL and the NBA and the MLB sooner than anticipated. But if this goes terribly wrong, and heaven forbid, a racer or a staffer gets COVID, then that could push things back even further than was previously anticipated. So I hope it goes well, and in theory, if it does go well, that could move this process along a little bit quicker and maybe give those leagues some other confidence that they can put out their product while not endangering anybody's health.
All right. Thank you so much, Tanner. I do appreciate that. Okay, before we get out of here, let's one more time, let's get the answer to this Tanner trivia question. Go ahead and ask that question one more time.
Which Motown singer tried out for the Detroit Lions in 1970? Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, Lionel Richie, or Smokey Robinson?
I'm going to go with Marvin Gaye.
That is correct.
Ah.
Gaye bulked up nearly 30 pounds, and he trained with future Hall of Fame tight end Charlie Sanders while preparing for his tryout. He didn't end up making the cut, but he remained close with several players who ended up singing background vocals on his 1971 hit, What's Going On?
Nice. All righty. There you go. So good question there. A little sports music question. Let's do our Today in Sports History.
Today in 1923, Senator Walter Johnson pitched his 100th shutout, beating the Yanks 3-0. In 1939, Lou Gehrig's 2,130 consecutive game streak was ended as the Yanks beat the Tigers 22-2. In 1967, the Stanley Cup Finals were held at the Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto, Ontario. Terry Sawchuk made 40 saves as the Toronto Maple Leafs beat the Montreal Canadiens 3-1 in Game 6 to take the title 4-2. In 1968, the Boston Celtics beat the LA Lakers 4-2 to win their 10th NBA championship. In 1978, in the NBA championship, the Portland Trail Blazers won in 4 games. Also in 1978, in the NFL draft, Earl Campbell from the University of Texas was the first pick by the Houston Oilers. In 1983, Norm Van Brocklin passed away. He still holds the record for most pass yards in a single game in NFL history with 554. In 1988, Reds manager Pete Rose was suspended for 30 days for pushing an umpire. In 1999, John Elway announced his retirement from the NFL. In 2012, Barcelona football player Lionel Messi broke the European goal scoring record with 68 goals. In 2012, former NFL linebacker Junior Seau tragically took his own life at the age of 43. And in 2015, Floyd Mayweather Jr. beat Manny Pacquiao on points in 12 rounds in the World Welterweight Unification fight, shattering all financial records for a boxing match. And that does it for Today in Sports History.
All right, and before we get out of here, Tanner, why don't you go ahead and one more time run down those Westwood One Sports Classic games people can tune into this week right here on 92.1 The Team.
First one coming up is on May 4th. These will all be airing at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, by the way. First up on May the 4th, Super Bowl 23 between the San Francisco 49ers and Cincinnati Bengals. Then on May 7th, it'll be the 2012 AFC Divisional game, the Baltimore Ravens at the Denver Broncos. On May 11th, it'll be Super Bowl 51, the New England Patriots against the Atlanta Falcons. And then on May 14th, it'll be the 2014 NFC Championship game between the Green Bay Packers and the Seattle Seahawks. On May 18th, it'll be Super Bowl 43 between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Arizona Cardinals. On May 21st, it'll be the 2009 NFC Championship game, the Minnesota Vikings at the New Orleans Saints. And May 25th, Super Bowl numero uno between the Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs. And last but not least, on May 28th, the 06 AFC Championship game, the New England Patriots at the Indianapolis Colts.
All righty, there you go. Thank you so much, Tanner. Have a good week. Stay healthy, and we'll chat next week, okay?
All right, sounds good.
Want to thank our guest today, Eric Eager from Pro Football Focus. You can follow him on Twitter at PFF_Eric. He's also one of the hosts of PFF Forecast Podcast. You can listen to that wherever podcasts are available, all over on those digital platforms, PFF.com. Tyler Kirk from Fansided.com and NFLMocks.com. You can follow him on Twitter at TKirk3. That's TKIRK3. Good follow on Twitter from Fansided.com and NFLMocks.com. And finally, Ryan Leaf. You can follow him on Twitter at Ryan D. Leaf. Also, you can check out his work at transcendingrecoverycommunity.com. You can watch him on the Pac-12 network. You'll see him on ESPN, hear him on ESPN radio doing some college football and NFL draft analysis. He also has a podcast on his new podcast platform, Believe. That's BLEAV as well. So he is all over the place. You can catch Ryan in a lot of different spots. We appreciate him giving us 25 minutes of his time today. If you missed any portion of the show, any of the interviews, or you just want to go back and listen to the show, you can do that just by going to 921theteam.com and use the link there. You can go on over to the YouTube page and listen to the show again. And again, don't forget, follow us on Twitter, My Team Media, and My Team Media on Facebook. We'll have updates about who's coming on and what we'll be doing on the show next week. All right, thanks, everybody. I think we've done enough damage for today. I'm going to boot, scoot, boogie on out of here. Be good. If not, have fun trying. We'll catch you on the flip side. I'm going.
It's such a good feeling, a very good feeling. The feeling you know that I'll be back when the day is new, and I'll have more ideas for you, and you'll have things you'll want to talk about. I will too. I really like being with you. Bye.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's broadcast. Thank you for listening to my son, because without you listening, he would still be living at home.